none other than the president of these United States, Donald Trump.
What other presidents allow China to get away with is absolutely criminal, but I'm not like the other presidents, and it's not going to happen under President Trump. It's just not going to happen. After all of the abuses they've perpetrated, China's attempting to impose additional unjustified tariffs. Just so you understand, they all got rich because of tariffs. Now when we do it, oh, it's so terrible what Trump is doing. It's so terrible. They got rich. And not only China, many countries. I mean, you look at Vietnam, you look at so many, I could name 50 right now. Biden couldn't do that. He couldn't name any. Name one country. Name any country. What's the name of our country? He doesn't know. That's why additional tariffs on Chinese goods are in place effective midnight tonight at 104%. Until they make a deal with us, that's what it's going to be. I think they'll make a deal at some point. China will. They want to make a deal. They really do. They want to make a deal. They just don't know how to get it started because they're proud people. China will now pay a big number to our treasury. This is all taxes. And don't let them keep telling you that this is a tax on our people. I hate that. They say it's a tax. No, often much of it is paid. And
this isn't good. Not good at all. Not good at all. All right. Because here's the problem right now. Right now, as we are looking at the markets, there's a lot of shaking back and forth because there's so much instability and so much insecurity right now. And the EU approves of new tariffs right now, 23 billion in U.S. goods as we speak. We're also seeing how the United States how the United States got responded to by China. So I want to pull up this right here. This is from Unusual Whales. Be sure to follow them on all their social media. But this is breaking. China raises tariffs on U.S. goods to a whopping 84%. And I think as it stands, I can't play the music because it's copyright. But so I think somebody from China is trying to own the USA. Yes, this video has gone viral. It's of Americans working in sweatshops. I dread AI art and AI videos and everything that it's doing. But there we are. Whoever did this from China, come on, man. Come on. What? Why are you doing this to us? Why? Oh my God, why? Yes, this hurts to look at. Make America great again. By reopening sweatshops and, hey, let's have some child labor. So Trump slaps proud China with 104 tariffs. As it stands, the U.S. has hiked tariffs on all Chinese imports to a staggering 104%, escalating the ongoing trade conflict and wiping out another $1.5 trillion from U.S. stock markets on Tuesday. By the way, I've been reading a lot of internet online drama too. Side note, a lot of influencers who you see invested in crypto or other kind of things are reportedly losing millions of dollars, which, holy cow. And I've also been hearing horrific reports. And yes, even in my live stream comments or comments on some of my videos, especially talking about these tariffs, about people hearing stories from their friends. One in particular in which one viewer wrote, a friend of mine has not told his wife that her 401k was wiped clean of a $400,000. And he doesn't know how to tell her. Whether you like it or not, we're all affected by this. And this isn't being, panic or anything. It's just more of, I want those who are on board with these tariffs to understand, or at least try and understand, that after the COVID lockdowns, a lot of people have not fully recovered. A lot of people are still hurting, and a lot of people are right now in some dire straits. Student debt, that's not going to be forgiven anytime soon. You got a lot of people struggling with credit card debts. You got a lot of small business owners struggling. You got a lot of people who are just tightening up their wallets. And it's very clear. It's very clear that the pain is going to be real. Now, these multi-billionaires, and yes, maybe some of these influencers or everything else, they're going to be fine at the end of the day. The rest of us, though, as prices rise up and up and up and up and up, which was one of the key issues running in 2024. I don't care what anybody else says. It wasn't identity politics. It was the economy, stupid. Whatever Trump's plan is, for everybody's sake, it better work out. But I don't think other countries are going to be bending the knee so quickly. Continuing on. The White House published an amendment to the April 2nd executive order in which Trump declared a national emergency over the U.S. trade deficit and imposed a baseline tariff on all imports to the U.S. The administration said that nearly 70 countries have sought negotiations to mitigate the impact of tariffs as Trump pursues tailored deals with individual nations. The president went on to say that Beijing will have to make a deal at some point, claiming that they just don't know how to get it sorted because they're proud people. Until then, he added, China will now pay a big number to our treasury. Right now, China is paying a 104% tariff. Think of it. It sounds ridiculous, but they charged us for many items, 100%, 125%. And to be clear, we are in this mess because of previous Democrat and Republican presidential administrations. We're in this mess because we had a lot of politicians embrace free trade. We're in this mess because we had a lot of politicians, even serving in the United States Senate and House decades ago, do nothing as industry was shut down here in the USA, as communities and people had to find a way to make a different living. And this has been going on for decades. And you, my audience, you have shared stories about what has happened in your community or how your family had to leave a neighborhood because the factory shut down, the warehouse shut down, something of that nature. And I get it. You know, we are in a day and age now where automation is taking over. AI is taking over. If we get these industries back, well, you better believe that there's a cause and effect. Yes. One of the goals is to make sure that many of these companies can get an affordable loan so they can open up or reestablish these factories. But who's going to be in them? To quote that scene from The Simpsons, and because I think Due Dissidence was talking about that scene from The Simpsons where robots are going to be doing the jobs, or maybe it was on the Jimmy Dore show. I forget which one. But the direct quote was, Bart and Lisa were going to military school, and the principal or commander of that military school was telling the kids, young people, you are tomorrow's warriors, but you will not be fighting on those battlefields. Some might be fought in space and some might be fought on a tall mountain, but you will be building and maintaining those robots to fight those battles. So in other words, we're going to be having robots building robots, and our job will be to build and maintain those robots. Some of us may not even get the job to build and maintain a robot. You just might be on the outside looking in like, oh, I want to build and maintain a robot to fight on a tall mountain or in space. That's how it's going to be done. Now, is that an over-exaggeration? Oh, absolutely. But this is a problem because people's personal 401ks are being Thanos out of existence. I want to play this video here as well because there's a lot of people who are very optimistic about this. And I'm not one of those people. Sorry. Every time I have hope, it blows up in my face.
104% tariffs on China are not enough. I'm advocating 400%. I do business in China. They don't play by the rules. They've been in the WTO for decades. They have never abided by any of the rules they agreed to when they came in for decades. They cheat, they steal IP. I can't litigate in their courts. They take product, technology, they steal it, they manufacture it, and sell it back here. Never has an administration.
400% tariffs? What would that look like?
I want Xi on an airplane to Washington to level the playing field. This is not about tariffs anymore. Nobody has taken on China yet, not the Europeans, no administration for decades. As someone who actually does business there, I've had enough. I speak for millions of Americans who have IP that have been stolen by the Chinese. I have nothing against the Chinese people. They brought great literacy, art, and tech to the world. The government cheats and steals, and finally, an administration, you may not like Trump, you may not like his style or his rhetoric, finally, an administration that puts up and says enough. 400% tariffs tomorrow morning. He'll tell you why. Xi can only stay the supreme leader if people are employed. if we wipe out any business there, because we are still 39% of all consumables on Earth and 25% of the world's GDP, America is the #1 economy on Earth with all the cards. We will not have that forever. It's time to squeeze Chinese heads into the wall now.
Well,
I'm
hold
not
on
talking
a
about
second,
tariffs.
Oh boy. How will this not blow up in our face as China is implementing, you guessed it, 84% tariffs on US goods? That means, of course, Trump will probably retaliate back, and China will retaliate back. What's the tipping point to where everything goes kaboom?
Well, I hear you, but hold on. If we're talking about people, the average consumer, not necessarily the head honchos of businesses all across the globe, can they withstand the pressure of that sort of tax on the goods?
Short-lived. There will be,
but what's your timeline compared to, you don't know the average American's timeline, what they can actually survive. There's people right now who can't survive
400% tomorrow morning, cheese on an airplane to Washington to cut a deal.
No, because here's what's happening right now. I got an article from the BBC. A full-scale trade war with China and the U.S. is in prospect after President Donald Trump imposed tariffs of more than 100% on Chinese goods and imports. China says it will fight to the end. And knowing China, here's the thing about China, folks. A long time ago, before Chairman Mao took over, long before the Empire of Japan took over and was tearing apart China, China was abused by a lot of colonial powers. They even had an opioid crisis there too. China was being kicked around. And especially when the Empire of Japan started occupying and committing war crimes in China, then after Chairman Mao took over, there was a phrase of never again, never again, never again. So when China says it's going to fight to the bitter end, you better believe that they're going to do it, because a lot of those scars still remain. A lot of that pain still resonates. So the U.S. trying to go back and forth with China. By the way, I made this joke a long time ago, way back on Hardlands Media, when there was the instigating concern or maybe fight over Taiwan. We're kind of entering into that weird fallout timeline. You have Donald Trump jokingly, or I don't know how serious he is, talking about annexing Canada, making it the 51st state. You know what happened in the fallout timeline? The USA annexes Canada. You also know what happens in that timeline, too, in the game Fallout. The U.S. begins having a little back and forth economic trade wars with China, leading up to WW3. And, of course, China invading Alaska and all that other good jazz. What could go wrong? What could go wrong? This is a series of backstabbing and revenge. It has to stop. The wars have to stop. This has to stop. And yes, the average citizen is built differently. There's a lot of people that just don't have the money in their hip back pocket to survive. But then again, we have politicians who don't care. I want to pull up this video here. This was from yesterday.
It is just after 8 Wednesday morning in Beijing, where some people may be waking up to news of U.S. tariffs about to kick in. In about 4 hours, the Trump administration will impose 104% tariffs. This is the latest in a round of attacks that could have massive implications on the world stage. Let's go live to Hong Kong, where journalist Laura Westbrook is on this story for us. Laura, markets are just beginning to open up on your part of the world. What is the latest?
Yeah, that's right. Here in Hong Kong, the stock market is going to open in about an hour and a half's time, but markets in Australia, South Korea, and Japan have just opened. And we are waiting to see where they go, because this comes after stocks in the US had this incredible reversal going after early gains falling, with the S&P falling at least 1.6%. And that shows there's still a lot of uncertainty and a lot of volatility. And we have been at least looking at this part of the world. On Tuesday, we did see stocks rise in Hong Kong as well as Japan. And that was on hopes that perhaps there might be a deal and negotiations after Donald Trump had a phone call with the South Korea's acting president as well as Japan's prime minister. But of course, when it comes to the world's second biggest economy, China, no sign there whether there will be any kind of deal at the moment.
Yeah, so it appears the U.S. won't be backing down on its 104% tariffs on China. So how is China responding?
We know how China's going to be responding because going further, how much trade do they do between the United States and China? Well, let's go ahead and talk about this. The trade in goods between the two economic powers adds up to 585 billion last year, though the U.S. imported far more from China, 440 billion, than China imported from America, 145 billion. So that means that the left the U.S. running a trade deficit with China. The difference between what imports and exports of 225 billion in 2024, that's considerable trade deficit equivalent to around 1% of the US economy, but it's less than 1 trillion figure that Trump has repeatedly claimed this week. Trump already imposed significant tariffs on China in his first term as president. Those tariffs were kept in place and added to by his successor, Joe Biden. So in other words, remember when I said that Joe made sure that nothing would fundamentally change? You want to know why things are still were so terrible during those 4 years? Well, take a wild guess. Joe didn't do anything. So continue on. Together, those trade barriers helped bring the goods the U.S. imported from China down from 21% share to America's total imports in 2016 to 13% last year. So the U.S. reliance on China for trade has diminished over the past decade. Yet analysis point out that some Chinese goods exports to the U.S. have been rerouted through Southeast Asian countries. So what does the U.S. and China import to each other? Well, let's talk about it. We got pharmaceuticals, we got computers, electronics, toys, batteries, electric vehicles. The biggest category of U.S. imports from China is actually smartphones, accounting up for 9%. There's talks about Donald Trump saying that iPhones should be built here. Listen, no matter what, Americans are going to demand pay. Good luck with these robots, by the way. But seeing how artificial intelligence is taking over, it looks like they're able to maybe do some interesting things with AI. I want to pull up this graph right here. The top 5 imports, exports 2024. U.S. exports to China: soybeans, aircraft and engines, integrated circuits, pharmaceuticals, petroleum. China exports to the U.S.: smartphones, laptops, batteries, toys, telecoms, equipment. What could go wrong? All these imported items to the U.S. from China were always set to become considerably more expensive for Americans due to the 20% tariff the Trump administration always imposed on Beijing. Now the tariff has risen to 104%. The impact could be 5 times greater, and the U.S. imports into China will also go up in price due to China's retaliatory tariffs, ultimately hurting Chinese consumers in a similar way. But beyond tariffs, there are other ways for these two nations to attempt to damage each other through trade. Also, looking at this, I want to bring up this super chat here. Thank you, CB Applejack. Tip $5. China reinvests that trade money back into buying U.S. bonds. China kind of has us buy, you guessed it, the balls, and that's not good. That's, in fact, very frightening and very devastating. I also want to pull up this. This is a statement from the press secretary of the United States.
Yes, thank you. You mentioned the 70 countries or so. I'm curious, though, under what conditions at this point would President Trump talk to President Xi about tariffs?
Look, I just spoke to the president about this, and he believes that China wants to make a deal with the United States. He believes China has to make a deal with the United States. It was a mistake for China to retaliate. The president, when America is punched, he punches back harder. That's why there will be 104% tariffs going into effect on China tonight at midnight. But the president believes that Xi and China want to make a deal. They just don't know how to get that started. And the president also wanted me to tell all of you that if China reaches out to make a deal, he'll be incredibly gracious, but he's going to do what's best for the American people.
So China has to call first?
The Chinese want to make a deal. They just don't know how to do it. But the president will be implementing these 104% tariffs on China tonight.
Under what conditions?
And that's just going to be very crucial and extremely important. I do want to pull up this video here.
中国人不惹事，也不怕事。施压、威胁和讹诈不是同中方打交道的正确方式。中方必将采取必要措施，坚决维护自身正当合法权益。如果美方置两国和国际社会的利益于不顾，执意打关税战、贸易战，中方必将 奉陪到底。
So China's not backing down. And another thing too, and while it's not related to trade, it will play a role in regards to how these talks are going to go. U.S. delivers Panama Canal ultimatum to China. The U.S. has vowed to take back the Panama Canal from Chinese influence and has launched a series of military deployments and joint exercises with Panama to reinforce the commitment, according to Defense Secretary Peter Hegseth. The Pentagon chief attended the inauguration of the new U.S.-financed dock at the Vasco Nuez de Balboa Naval Base on Tuesday, touting the facility as a symbol of the shared commitment to the canal security, following U.S. President Donald Trump's repeated claims to reclaim the key waterway. China did not build this canal, China does not operate this canal, and China will not weaponize this canal, Hegseth said in a speech. Together, we will take back the Panama Canal from China's influence, and we will do this along with other capable, like-minded allies and partners. This is what peace through strength looks like. Early this year, the U.S. president refused to rule out the use of military force to take control of the canal, saying that all options are on the table to protect national security interests. Last month, Trump reportedly directed the Pentagon to provide credible military operations to ensure fair and unfettered U.S. military and commercial access. Hegseth confirmed that multiple U.S. Navy vessels, Coast Guard assets, and aircraft have been deployed in and around Panama as part of the bold first steps to revive our defense and security ties between our countries. Along with U.S. military assets currently operating in Panama are the guided missile cruisers USS Chosen and USS Normandy, as well as the USCGC Kimball, a high-endurance U.S. Coast Guard cutter. Additionally, U.S. Marine Corps and Navy aircraft are taking part in bilateral drills aimed at enhancing air and maritime condition. So, that's another reason why probably this trade war is intensifying. It's who controls Panama or the Great Panama Canal. It's all about who has the power, who has the influence, who has the energy, who's got that dog in them. What could possibly go wrong? And as I'm still reporting on this, the trade war is still underway. China is unlikely to blink first, and we'll probably have to deal with this tomorrow as well.